Hi, it's Christina at Cemetery of Choice. Today is August 13th, and we have got doctors, a preacher, and a buttload of lies to look at today. Our first abortion death is from 1922. A young woman named Beulah was 21 years old and living in Kentucky with her parents. Now, she was a bookkeeper, but she had plans. She and her friend Floyd wanted to get into vaudeville. So they left Louisville for Chicago. Now, strangely enough, Beulah didn't tell her family that she was going there to further her career. She said she was going to visit friends. So there's a bit of a mystery there. An unidentified man described as wealthy and prominent had arranged for the journey. Whether he spirited the young woman to Chicago for the abortion or to further her career is something I haven't been able to find out. But Beulah's dreams died along with her at Chicago's Midwest Hospital on August 13th. Authorities determined that she had died from complications of an abortion. Two physicians, Vincent Filetti and Michael Galgano, were held by the coroner and indicted for felony murder. In her deathbed statement, Beulah had identified Filetti as her abortionist. So it could be Galgano was prosecuted as an accessory. So Floyd, the friend, and Patrick Owens, who is the manager of a hotel, were held as accessories, and a physician only identified as Dr. Peterson were held as witnesses. And I've been completely unable to determine the final outcome of the case. I'll keep looking. Like, share, and subscribe so I can get monetized. Go to Chicago and dig into all this. The next death was at the hands of a Pentecostal preacher in Chicago in 1954. A 17-year-old girl named Nathalie died at Cook County Hospital from complications of an abortion performed by Reverend Clarence Laveau in a back room of his storefront church, the Pentecostal Righteous Temple of God. Now, Laveau, who was 59 at the time, insisted that he had only been giving treatment to Nathalie and not performing an abortion. But he had two small rooms in the back of the church that were fully equipped with every medical tool needed for an abortion practice. And he was arrested when another 17-year-old girl identified him as the man who'd perpetrated an abortion on her. Police who staked out the church for 2 weeks prior to the raid in which they arrested him said that Laveau charged between $5 and $100 for abortions, roughly $48 to $960 in 2020 dollars. Again, I have been unable to find any more of the outcome of that case. Now we jump ahead to the safe and legal era. Donna was a 20-year-old nursery school teacher who went to her medical clinic in California on August 12, 1986, accompanied by her sister. Now, Donna told staff that she had asthma. She noted this on her forms when she filled them out. But in spite of this pre-existing condition, a nurse anesthetist administered general anesthesia for her abortion. And Donna started to have difficulty breathing, but Milan Cannon continued with the procedure for 5 more minutes before helping the nurse anesthetist to try to restore Donna's breathing. Donna's sister was in the waiting room, and she became alarmed when there was some strange staff activity. She asked somebody about her sister, and they reassured her that Donna was fine. But Donna's sister saw an ambulance pull up to the building, so she stepped outside where she saw Donna being loaded in. So she followed the ambulance to a hospital where somebody contacted Donna's parents. And Donna died the next day without regaining consciousness. An investigation was sparked, and an administrative law judge ruled that Cannon had been negligent in continuing the abortion despite Donna's respiratory arrest. And the judge also found that Cannon failed to do medical exams, take medical histories, or administer standard tests prior to abortions. Now, Donna's father told the Sacramento Bee, "I honestly thought that within a month or two, the man would be in prison for manslaughter. When you go to the cemetery to visit your daughter, there's no way you can explain that. And this guy's just kicking back and making more money." And Donna's mother, Barbara, told the Daily News of Los Angeles County, "I thought they'd close the doors so no one else would die. But just a month after Donna's fatal abortion, a young woman named Liliana, who also had asthma, died after an abortion at that clinic." Now, Maria Soto had already died there the previous year while left unattended, and a young woman named Michelle would die the following year after being improperly resuscitated when she stopped breathing. So, 4 deaths in 1985, 1986, and 1987. 4 deaths, 3 years. Now we get to a really infuriating case. This is in Georgia in 1988. And the abortion lobby does not want you to think carefully about these maternal and fetal indications abortions, but let me tell you, doctors will lie and bully to get women to consent to these abortions. And Dr. Thomas Murphy Goodwin, who operated a high-risk maternity clinic in, I believe, Los Angeles County, said that he thinks it's just defensive medicine. If something goes wrong with the pregnancy, they're afraid they're going to get sued, but they don't figure they're going to get in trouble for the abortion they refer for. Whoever does the abortion will get in trouble. So, 41-year-old Allegra had been diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. So she was admitted to Emory Hospital for assessment and surgery in anticipation of being admitted to an experimental cancer program. Now there they did a sonogram and found a 23-week pregnancy. And everybody was surprised because Allegra had undergone fertility treatments to conceive her son 20 years earlier. Now, her liver specialist, family doctor, and gynecologist had all failed to detect the pregnancy. Even though she had no periods, her breasts were tender, her abdomen was distended, and she had nausea, because those symptoms were attributed to the cancer and other ailments. Now, Allegra's doctors offered abortion as her only alternative. They told her that her unborn baby was doomed anyway due to her ailments and the treatment she's already undergone, and that the pregnancy would render her ineligible for the experimental treatment that was her last chance at life. This was not true at all. Pregnancy would not have kept her from being admitted to this program. No one arranged for a consult with a perinatologist. That's somebody who handles babies right before and right after delivery, or with an obstetrician. They apparently did not discuss the options of continuing the pregnancy or prematurely delivering the baby. So Allegra and her husband very sadly agreed to go ahead with the abortion. They named the baby Amy. Allegra was transferred to Emory's Crawford Long Hospital for the abortion, and a Dr. Young W. On initiated it by prostaglandin suppository on August 8th of 1988. And prostaglandin is a hormone that causes muscle contractions. So the idea is if they administer a lot of prostaglandin in a suppository, it will cause uterine contractions and expel the baby. Where was I? She developed sepsis after the abortion, and Allegra died on August 13th. And her husband asked for an autopsy of the baby, Amy, and the autopsy revealed that Amy had been normal. She could have been delivered alive. So the liver specialist contended that Allegra would have aborted Amy even if she had known that the baby was healthy to be eligible for the experimental program, but that wasn't necessary to get into the experimental program. The gynecologist said that the reason for the abortion was damage to the fetus due to radiation therapy and chemotherapy, but Allegra hadn't undergone either of those. And all the defendants held that Allegra would not have survived long enough to deliver Amy alive anyway. But the prognosis for her cancer, if untreated, was 3 to 6 months. Little Amy was at 23 weeks, which at that time was about a week shy of when they could start thinking of the baby as viable. Allegra could have had the choice to continue the pregnancy, even if just for a few more weeks. So it just seems bizarre that as one of the last acts of her life, they subjected her to a grueling late-term abortion instead of delaying even as much as a week. Now, Allegra's husband and son sued. The jury did render a verdict against the liver specialist for the wrongful death of baby Amy, which is unusual. Usually, dead baby, oh well, too bad. But they didn't return a verdict for Allegra's death because they said the cancer would have killed her soon anyway. So evidently they didn't consider the value of the time she could have spent being a mother to her baby daughter to be of any value at all. And Allegra is one of the first women that comes to mind when people talk about fetal indications and maternal indications abortions. I know of lots of cases where women were lied to get them to go ahead with these abortions and then wound up dead. And I would think the pro-choicers would agree with me that that is absolutely inexcusable.